settle in, get comfy. This is going to be a long video. I made the decision earlier in the year to combine my monthly reading review videos into kind of big review videos, just to put less pressure on myself to film a review video every single month. This video is going to cover July, August, September, and October. This is our mega video. Let's jump right in. The first book I read was Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is a historical literary fiction style book, and I gave it 4.25 stars. Malibu Rising is set in 1983, I think, and follows the Riva family. Riva might be a familiar surname to people who are in the Taylor Jenkins Reid universe. Mick Riva was one of Evelyn Hugo's 7 husbands. This was kind of the book where I realized that Taylor Jenkins Reid's books are all this extended universe, and I really like that. Other familiar names were mentioned throughout the book. Particularly, we are dealing with the Riva children, so we have Nina, Jay, Hud, and Kit. Nina is a supermodel slash surfer, but mostly supermodel. Jay is a surfer, like professionally. Hud is a photographer professionally, and Kit is kind of the baby of the family, still quite young. And by young, I mean late teens, early 20s. Each sibling has a pretty big secret that they're keeping from the other siblings in this book, and we start to see these secrets slowly start to unravel as we keep going in the book. The big plot is really surrounding Nina's end of summer party. So Nina throws an end of summer party at the end of summer every year. And taking this straight from the back of the book, it says, by midnight, the party will be completely out of control. By morning, the Riva mansion will have gone up in flames. We spend this book flipping back and forth in time, both on the night and in their pasts, learning about how these siblings all grew up and like their life stories. We also get each of the siblings' kind of point of views swapping throughout the night. That's how the party spans, you know, the whole book, because we have so many things going on and so many sibling secrets to track. And there is that mystery element. We know the mansion burns down, it's on the back of the book. How did it burn down? Who burned it down? Was it an accident or was it on purpose? And I loved this setup. My curiosity made me tear up this book. And I think this is something that Taylor Jenkins Reid does really well in all of her books. She really gets you hooked with whatever the premise is, and you really just want to keep going. Her characters are also so distinct and flawed and real. The book also feels quite tabloid-y. You're reading about these untouchable people doing bad things, but also you're really empathizing with them and seeing their struggles. I really recommend this. Taylor Jenkins Reid fans are gonna love it and have loved it since forever, so definitely give it a read if you like Taylor Jenkins Reid. Once again, she is gaslighting us the whole time into thinking these are real people, because they come through so strongly that you genuinely leave this thinking, were the Rivas real people? And that's how I always feel about her books, especially like Daisy Jones and Evelyn Hugo. Next, I read The Prisoner's Throne by Holly Black. This is the second book in the Stolen Heir duology. It is a YA fantasy, and I gave it 3.5 stars. This series is a spin-off from the Crow Prince series. And full disclosure, I really love the Crow Prince series. In this one, we follow Oak, who is now all grown up, and Ren, a character who I believe maybe was in the Crow Prince series, but she was very minor and a kid. I can't remember her at all. I didn't know who she was until I started the first book. Since this is the second and final book in the duology, I'm just gonna kind of introduce you to the world of the Crow Prince and Stolen Heir, because I don't want to get into spoiler territory. It's Holly Black also. She loves a cliffhanger or a plot twist right at the end. She's very good at them. I just don't want to ruin the experience for you. These books are set in fairyland. Yes, these are fairy books. The Fae have magic. For example, they can compel humans to do pretty much anything. And there's different types of Fae with varying levels of power. Also, something that's quite important throughout all the series is is that they cannot lie. This makes most of the Fae we encounter quite deceptive and dangerous. Just because you can't lie doesn't mean you're truthful. Years and years of practice has made these fairies really cruel and really cunning. Seems like a pretty hostile environment for a human. That's the setting we get introduced to in the Cruel Prince series, and that is continued through these. As I've said, Holly Black loves a plot twist, and she's so good at her twists and her turns. She's fantastic for morally grey characters who behave badly, but you're just rooting for at every turn because you get why they're morally grey and you get why they act how they do. It's all very complicated. The political machinations we see going on in these books are brilliant. That's the stuff I really enjoy in fairy books, like a big old game of chess. All of that being said, I enjoyed this duology in this book a bit less than I enjoyed the Cruel Prince series. The other books felt like they had more twists, even more twists, but also I preferred the characters in the original series. There were some shocking moments in here though, like don't get me wrong. I really do think Cruel Prince enjoyers will really like this duology, and seeing where our characters have ended up, check it out if that's you. I cannot imagine going into this duology without reading the Cruel Prince series. I don't think that makes sense. Next, I read Elektra by Jennifer Saint. This is a mythological retelling, and I gave it 3 stars. I love a myth retelling. I love Greek mythology. I have Athena just over my shoulder here, always watching. So I do like to give retellings a go, just to see how are they. I read Ariadne by this author a few years ago, and I didn't enjoy it. I wanted to give the author another chance, so I picked up Elektra. I wasn't overly certain of who Elektra was in terms of like the myth. I saw that I didn't know who it was. I was like, yes, I'm gonna read this. I'm gonna learn a new story. Hell yeah. I'm going to mispronounce a name, probably a few names in this section because it's ancient Greek. Forgive me guys. But anyway, turns out Elektra is just Agamemnon's daughter. You know, that guy from the Iliad. We are following 3 characters throughout this book: Clytemnestra, Elektra, and Cassandra. Clytemnestra was Helen of Troy's sister. Cassandra is the seer from Troy, and Elektra is Clytemnestra and Agamemnon's daughter. I felt a lot of pity for Clytemnestra in the first half. Stuff happens that is really heartbreaking. I did know that these heartbreaking things were gonna come because from the Iliad. But the second half, I started to care a lot less. Cassandra, I found her story quite interesting. This idea of someone being able to see the future, but no one believing her. The cruelty of such a curse is such an interesting thing to explore. However, Cassandra didn't get her own book. She had to share it with 2 other storylines. So I feel like it wasn't explored as fully as it could have been. I would read a book all about Cassandra because I thought the premise was really good. Then we have Elektra. You could say she's a complex character, or more accurately that she is insufferable. I greatly disliked her. I disliked being in her head, her thoughts, her actions, and not in a fun hate to love a character, no, just a hate to hate character. I think that is my relationship with Jennifer Saint books officially terminated, which is such a shame because she has written a book about Atlanta, who is a Greek hero I would love to read a book about. But we're 0 for 2 on Jennifer Saint books now. So I'm not going to read another Jennifer Saint book. At that stage, it's on me. I don't really recommend this, unfortunately. Next, I read Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. This is the second book in the Shadow and Bone series. It is a YA fantasy, and I gave it 3.25 stars. This book is set in the expanded universe known as the Grishaverse. This is the same universe as Six of Crows, so you might see where I'm going with this. That is the main reason I'm reading the Shadow and Bone series. I really want to read Six of Crows. I really want to get there, but I want to be really comfortable with the universe first so I can immerse myself in Six of Crows. Plus, the Shadow and Bone series came out first. In this Grishaverse, there are magic users called the Grisha. There's different types of Grisha, and they're given classifications based on their powers, and they wear colors depending on what classification they have. For example, we have the Corporalki. I don't know. those guys. And they wear red. And within that classification, we have heartrenders, healers, and tailors, I believe. And each of those, they wear red, but they have specific embroidery showing which of the three they are. That's just one example. There's all the kinds. So enter our main character, Alina Starkov. She ends up having really special powers. And that is not a spoiler because it is on the back of the first book. I checked. This second book picks up a little bit after the end of the first book, and everything kind of kicks off again. The plot just kicks right into gear. I actually liked this second one more than I liked the first one. The first book, no joke, sent me into a reading slump. That wasn't fun. This one was more interesting, to be honest. I will say I'm not a massive fan of the love interest, which is really sad to me. He annoys me a lot. His attitude towards like plot points and characters in certain scenes, they don't gel with me. Yeah, he just annoys me. I don't like him. I quite like Alina though. I like this exploration of her being pushed into a role and having to try to meet all of these expectations while having obvious reservations and fears about it. Some of the new characters were fun, particularly Nikolai, who is a fan favorite, I believe. I'd heard of him before I'd ever read the book. When he showed up, I was like, oh, him. People love him. I get it. He's fun. I like him. The world in this book also has ties to kind of Eastern Europe, which I really like. I found it quite refreshing to read fantasy that isn't just bastardized Irish or Celtic myths. I am looking at you, Sarah J. Maas and Rebecca Yarros. Overall, it's a pretty good read. I will read the next one, but realistically, endgame is just to get to Six of Crows. Next, I read The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This is clearly a romance book, and I'm actually not going to review it because this was a reread. I read this right around the time where the casting of Lily Reinhart was announced, and I got really excited and yearned to reread the book. So I said, hello, yes, I will reread the book. And here we are. Just know I love it. It is 5 stars. I recommend it to everyone. This book is what got me into Ali Hazelwood, obviously, because it was her first book. I'm very excited to watch the movie. Read this and watch the movie when it comes out. Next, I read Happy Place by Emily Henry. This is obviously a romance book, and I gave it 4.25 stars. This is now me all caught up with Emily Henry releases. I felt like I would always have an Emily Henry book in reserve to get to, but no, this was it. This is the last one, which is kind of crazy. This was a super summary book, hence why I read it in July. In this story, we have Harriet and Win, the perfect couple, together for 10 years at this point, engaged, desperately in love, except they broke up about 6 months before this book takes place, and they didn't tell their friends. This is particularly messy because they are actually a part of the same friend group. This friend group does an annual kind of summer trip together to one of their friends' holiday home. They are face to face again for the first time since they broke up and pretending to still be together so as not to ruin the vibes of the trip. Shenanigans ensue. Throughout the book, we get flashbacks and we actually see them come together and become a couple, but then we also slowly start to see what happened to them. This is Emily Henry's stab at second chance romance, and I think it was fairly successful. Second chance romance is pretty tricky to get right, especially for me. I am a very all or nothing kind of person. It tends to be kind of hard for me to get on board with a second chance romance, especially if there's something like cheating going on or whatever. I don't often find one that I'm like, yes, this makes sense. This book, I got it, and I quite liked the book. I just don't think it was my favorite of her books. There was a good bit of miscommunication, not just between our love interests, but also between the love interests and all of the friends and between the friends. Even though these characters are supposed to know each other better than anyone else knows them, it's okay, but there's a lot of miscommunication. It's miscommunication, the book. But I do think Emily Henry fans will love this book. It has the feel of all of her other books, and it's really good to read on holidays in the sun. Let's move on to August. So in August I read 4 books. First, I read The Crimson Moth by Kristen Ciccarelli. This is also called The Heartless Hunter in the US, so that's the same book. It's the first book in the Crimson Moth duology. There's 2 books currently. I don't know if there'll be more. It is YA fantasy and I gave it 4 stars. I read it as an ebook, so I don't actually have anything to hold up and show you. Let me introduce you to the universe, to the world. The world used to be run by witches. Witches use blood to do magic, and there's different kinds of spells, and certain spells require different amounts of blood but also different freshness of blood. It's quite common for witches to cut like intricate designs into their skin and use their blood that way. The scars were seen as quite beautiful and signs of power, kind of like a badge of honor. The fresh blood and their own blood also ensured that the spells worked how they were supposed to. About 2 years before the beginning of the book, there was a revolution. The witch queens were overthrown and witches became hunted. And now the aforementioned scars became a condemnation. And so now enter our main character, Rune, who is a witch in hiding. She pretends to be this vapid socialite during the day, and she is like this witch vigilante by night. Her vigilante name has become the Crimson Moth after her magic signature, because magic has signatures depending who casted it. There's a lot to it, but don't worry about it. She smuggles witches out of the kingdom and to safety. She hadn't actually presented as a witch when the revolution happened, so she didn't even know she was a witch at the time. The thing that really kicks the plot into gear is a rescue mission kind of gone wrong. In order to keep her cover as the Crimson Moth, she decides to start courting the head of the witch hunters, Gideon. Gideon hates witches. We get loads of insight into why throughout the book. He played a crucial part in the revolution, and he has killed a lot of witches. After Rune's botched mission, Gideon kind of gets a clue that makes him kind of start to suspect Rune, and so he decides to court her for information. So now we have them both courting each other for information. This was a good book. It was fast paced and kept us going with all of these schemes between the 2 characters. There was some fun twists. There was one that I really saw coming for a while, but it was still good. There's some moments in here where you're really worried about Rune and like, how is she gonna get out of this one? And then somehow she does manage to get out of this one. And she's really clever in her plans. I love when that's done in a fantasy book. Cannot say that I adore Gideon. I didn't gel that much with his character, even though like I do completely get why he was doing what he was doing and why he hates witches. Like it makes sense. Doesn't mean I liked him. But it was also dual point of view. And while I think that's like fine in romance, it's not my favorite in fantasy. The way it was done like this, where each chapter is either a Rune or a Gideon chapter, and it's like set out in the top and everything changes. I feel like other authors have done this kind of jumping POVs really well. I just didn't think it worked as well in this book, and it did nothing to make me actually like Gideon. I feel like it could have been done differently. I look forward to reading the next one, and I do recommend it to YA fantasy enjoyers. Next, I read The Office of Historical Corrections by Danielle Evans. This is a set of short stories, and I gave it 5 stars. This book is an exploration of the intersection between race, gender, and even kind of grief. I'll get into my favorite stories in a second, but first I just want to give my overarching things I loved about this book. The prose flows beautifully. Every word and description felt like it was chosen very carefully by the author. I swear, there are some fantastic quotes in here. I loved this look at the themes in here and how the author managed to handle such a wide array of situations, all coming back and being tied under these universal subject matters of, like I said, race, gender, grief. I loved it. My favorite stories were probably Alcatraz and The Titular, the Office of Historical Corrections stories, and I can actually get into them now. So Alcatraz is about a woman, Cecilia, and her mother, particularly them kind of reconnecting with kind of long lost family members. Cecilia's mother has spent her whole life trying to clear the name of her, I think it's her great-grandfather. Great-grandfather, I'm pretty sure it's great-grandfather, after he was wrongfully imprisoned in Alcatraz. Cecilia and her mother go to Alcatraz and go for a visit, you know, the way it's like a tourist attraction now. And this is where it kind of sinks in for Cecilia why her mum has been so obsessed with clearing her great-grandfather's name. Viewing the commercialization of the trauma that came from Alcatraz really hammered that in for Cecilia. Really, this story was looking at generational trauma and the effect that had on Cecilia's mum, how it impacted her life and her sense of purpose. And I loved it. That's kind of our like quick go of Alcatraz. The titular story is all about a government agency called the Office of Historical Corrections, who go around correcting historical inaccuracies, both big and small. So one example we have in the book, we have Cassie, who's the main character of that story. She goes into a bakery and notices a mistake on a poster. The poster was advertising Juneteenth as a celebration of the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation, but that's not quite true. And I'll actually quote it straight from the book. "It's not a big deal," I said. "We don't give orders or anything. We're a public service, like 311. But I thought you'd like to know this flyer's not quite correct. The Emancipation Proclamation was issued in September 1862. Juneteenth is celebrated nationally because it's become a holiday for the whole diaspora, but it actually recognized the date slaves in Texas learned they were free, which was in June 1865, after the end of the Civil War." You see how she made that correction, and that's her job. Cassie is then sent to a small town to investigate a historical case of a black man potentially being burned alive by white supremacists. Things get uncovered, and the people in this town are very reluctant to accept the truths that were unearthed. This story in particular really does call upon you to think about the truth about history, but also the costs and risks of unveiling those truths. I really recommend this set of short stories. Read it, simple as that. I really look forward to reading more from this author. Next, I read A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. This is the first book in the Scholomance series. It is a fantasy book, and I gave it 4.5 stars. This book is set in a deadly school. Literally, magical students enter at like 14 years old because the outside world is too dangerous, and they do not leave until they graduate, if they survive that long. And it's actually fairly common for students to not survive that long. In this book, students literally have to travel around the school in groups for fear that a monster will kill them if they're alone and cornered. Our main character, Elle, has an affinity for mass destruction. She could burn this whole school to the ground with very little effort. Well, a bit of effort, but less effort than your average person. She's also not much liked. She has little to no allies in this school. Her dream is really to prove herself at graduation and basically to get into what's called an enclave. Like the name suggests, an enclave is a group of magic users who live and work together, and they kind of keep everyone within the enclave safe. Getting into an enclave basically ensures your survival once you graduate from this school. There's enclaves all over the world, and the stronger the enclave is, the more exclusive they are, and the more people want to get in for safety. A lot of the kids in this school are children of enclave members, so they're kind of by default in. Elle is kind of a nobody in that regard. Our story kind of kicks off when an enclave kid saves Elle's life against her will. They form this kind of reluctant friendship, and I say reluctant because Elle fights this friendship every single step of the way. She is not happy. We follow Elle throughout the rest of this school year. This book is definitely a love it or hate it kind of book. If you dislike straight up exposition, you will hate this. I would say this book is about 30% plot and 70% exposition and Elle talking to us and telling us stuff about the world. And yet I really enjoyed it. There was so much charm in here. I actually laughed multiple times out loud. There's this kind of dark irony surrounding Elle. Her whole thing with mass destruction and grumpiness and stubbornness, all of it really charmed me. Her interactions with the other characters and the friendships she starts to build while literally being the human embodiment of a thundercloud. It is exquisite, fantastic. I am reluctant to recommend this though, because I can see a lot of people not seeing this charm or seeing it the same way I do, and maybe not finding it as funny as I did. I don't know, it tickled me. Like, this humor was fantastic to me. I really enjoyed it. I was so surprised by how funny it was. Make of that what you will, and I will definitely keep reading this series. Next, I read The Dallergut Dream Department Store by Mie Lee. This is a magical realism book, and I gave it 4 stars. I do believe there is a second book in the universe. It's already out and translated into English. This book is set in our collective subconscious. The premise of this book is that when we sleep, we go shopping for dreams. There's a few places to buy dreams. One of the best places really is the Dallergut Dream Department Store. We are following a worker at this department store, Penny. We actually see her get the job, and then we follow her for about a year of her life as she meets people and just works in this store. The book is broken up into kind of short stories. They're not quite chapters because they're fairly self-contained, very much like Before the Coffee Gets Cold. We also follow the humans that come in to buy dreams, and we get a look into how their dreams impact their day-to-day lives and what happens as a result of having what dream. We also see people who make the dreams. This whole imagination industry that happens behind the scenes. I was kind of surprised by how much I liked this book. Already mentioned in this video, Before the Coffee Gets Cold, I would kind of compare it to that, but I actually preferred this one. I liked the stories more in here. I do think people who like that one will like this. It is similar enough that I do think people will like this. I saw one review say about this book, no plot, just vibes, and yeah, that's so true. It is pure vibes. I like character-driven books, so that worked well for me. I like getting to know our characters just doing their thing. I don't need a lot going on, and so that's why this book kind of suited me quite well, but I can also see how that would be a negative to other people. This book just really delivered in such a fun, imaginative way. I did find one of the stories super sad, which was really unexpected, but it was well written, kind of came out of nowhere. This book has stuck with me since finishing it. I woke up thinking about it sometimes. I suppose that's fairly relevant because sleeping and it's a book all about dreams. It kind of makes sense. I was surprised to have it stick with me as much as it did. I really look forward to reading the next book in the series. It's a good one. I really recommend it. We are now moving on to September. The first book I read in September was Katabasis by Orif Kwong. This is a fantasy standalone, and I gave it 5 stars. Are we shocked? I made a whole video on this book. I vlogged myself reading it, if you can call it vlogging, I don't know. And I updated the video every time I had something to say. Watch that reading vlog if you want a full spoiler-free review. I have the chapters on that video done out so that you can skip and get to the spoiler-free section. Check out that video. But just know I love this. I absolutely love this, and I do really recommend it, especially to Greek mythology fans, logic fans, academia fans, and people who enjoy Orif Kwong's writing. Next, I read Better in Black by Cassandra Clare. This is a set of short stories, all based in the Shadowhunters universe, and I gave this 5 stars. Are we shocked? No. This is actually another one I'm kind of gonna skip through because I backed this as a part of the Seasons of Shadowhunters Kickstarter, and I did a whole video on that Kickstarter reviewing each of the books. So check that out, I'll link it here somewhere if you want my full review of this. I go through each of the 4 books in that video, and once again I have it chaptered up, so even if you don't care about the other 3, you can skip straight to this one by doing the little toggle. Again, I really loved it. Shadowhunter fans will love this. It's also being traditionally published, so you can actually get this when it comes out. Next, I read Hot for Slayer by Ali Hazelwood. This is one of her short stories released as an ebook only, so nothing to show you. I didn't bother rating it because it's literally, I think, 90-ish Kindle pages long, but I will give you my thoughts about it. This is actually like the first of 3 Ali Hazelwood books I've read in 2 months. We're gonna hear about a lot of Ali Hazelwood from here on. But anyway, Hot for Slayer is about a vampire and a vampire hunter, or a vampire slayer, one might say. They are basically engaged in this centuries-long game of cat and mouse. That's kind of all I can tell you about it, since the book is so short. The chemistry between the characters in here was fantastic. I feel like Hazelwood's short stories have improved so much, especially since this Loathe to Love You series. It's somewhere behind me. My issue with them was a lack of time and growth for the characters because the books are so short. You never really get comfy with the characters, and by the time you do, the book's over. It didn't seem as much of a problem in Hot for Slayer. I feel like I got it instantly. I understood the dynamic. It all felt good straight off the bat. It might have been the literal centuries of history between the characters. If you're struggling to meet your reading goal for the year, I recommend this. You'll fly through it in an hour or so. If you like Ali Hazelwood's books, I recommend this. I did read it to ease myself into spooky season. So maybe wait till next year and read it next spooky season. But I enjoyed it. It was a nice light read. We are finally in October. The first book I read in October was Consider Me by Becca Mack. This is a hockey romance and I gave it 3 stars. This book is your classic hockey romance. We have Olivia, a PE teacher, and Carter, a professional hockey player. Their best friends are dating each other, and so they meet at Olivia's best friend's birthday party. Carter is warned to stay away from Olivia. He's a playboy who refuses to settle down and ends up going up to Olivia anyway. She shuts him down because she does not do one-night stands. She's a relationship gal. Cue Carter's never-ending obsession with her. And there's your plot. I gave this book 3 stars because it exactly meets your expectations when you think of hockey romance. Olivia is teeny tiny and men are enthralled by her. She loves hockey. Carter is a golden retriever playboy. I'm tired. Can you tell? I bought this book years ago. That was back when I was really enjoying hockey romance as a subgenre. But I'm so over it now. I forced myself to read this. I wanted it off my TBR. I will actually be giving it away. And I will not continue this series at all. I don't know if you've noticed, if anyone has, but I gave away the Al Kennedy box set I had because I don't like hockey romance anymore. Besides me being over the subgenre, I do have other gripes with this book. It's too damn long. I maintain that romance books do not need this many pages. 540 in case you were wondering. No, stop it, knock it off. Next, Olivia has too many nicknames. You might think that's petty, but just you wait for it. And I'm about to get real passionate about this, so you strap in. Olivia's friends call her multiple nicknames. No big deal, right? Wrong, wrong, boo. There's All, there's Liv, there's Livy, there's Ollie. There's definitely like Ollie Pop or something like that. And there's more. These are off the top of my head. The thing is, they will use 2 or 3 of these nicknames in one conversation. The conversation will flow kind of like, oh, All, I haven't seen you in ages, Ollie. How are you, Liv? Shut up. Just pick 1, maybe 2, okay? Or maybe like have each of the characters have a different nickname for her. One character does not need to call her 5 different nicknames. I hate it. I'm calm. But anyway, I don't recommend this unless you are in your hockey romance era. Good for you if you are. I am not. Next, I read Mate by Ali Hazelwood. This is the most recent release in kind of like interconnected standalone set. This is a paranormal romance and I gave it 4.25 stars. This one, like I said, is set in the Bride universe and follows Misery's best friend, Serena. Just to let you know, maybe mild Bride spoilers from now on. There's something that gets revealed in Bride that is a central plot point in this, and it is on the back of the book. So if you don't want to be spoiled, skedaddle. Nothing I say here will be beyond the blurb of this book. We find out in Bride that Serena is a were-human hybrid. If you've not read Bride, or if you can't remember, that sentence might be slightly gibberish. So let's kind of get into the world of Bride and Mate. There are wares. They're not werewolves, they are wares. Oh, they can transform into wolves. And there are vampires, spelled V-A-M-P-Y-R-E-S. Vampires. They are as you expect. And then we have humans, no magic or anything. Everything among these groups has been tense for forever, basically. The 3 groups have always been kind of at each other's throats, sometimes literally with the vampires. But at the moment, there's a very tenuous kind of peace amongst them. Serena, being a hybrid, has the potential to ruin that. Up until recently, no one knew that where human hybrids were possible. No one thought it could be a thing. But here Serena is as proof. The problem with that is that Serena's mere existence could bring humans and wares together and potentially have them gang up on the vampires and seize control. But then there's also wares and humans alike who both think that a hybrid is an abomination or that she should be studied for science. She's kind of has antagonists coming from everywhere. And then there is her love interest, Cohen. He is an alpha of one of the North American packs of wares. He gets roped into trying to keep her safe. But that's the setup. I really liked this, of course. Had all the usual beats of an Ali Hazelwood novel. The banter and chemistry was fantastic between our characters. This was also Ms. Hazelwood dipping her toes into the Omegaverse again, back to her fanfiction ways. This one had a few more Omegaverse elements. Oh, camera's gonna die. My camera died. So here we are on a different day to finish out this video. There's not much left. Let's get back into it. I was talking about Mate. The last thing I wanted to say about Mate is that there's definitely a lot more Omegaverse stuff in Mate than there was in Bride, purely because both the main characters are wares in this, whereas one of them was a vampire in Bride. Be aware of that if you're not an Omegaverse fan. There's a good bit of Omegaverse stuff in here. You've been warned. The final book I'm going to talk about today is First by Ali Hazelwood. This is a short story that came as a part of the After the End Kickstarter I backed. This Kickstarter was 8 short stories, all written by different authors. I backed the ebook only tier, so again, nothing to show you, but this is what the cover looks like up in the corner. The 8 stories in the Kickstarter are all kind of joined by this dystopian, post-apocalyptic love story connection. They're all in different post-apocalyptic universes, but they do have that kind of dystopian energy in each story. I didn't bother rating this as it's one of Ali Hazelwood's short stories, the same way I didn't rate Hot for Slayer, and this one was maybe slightly longer than Hot for Slayer, but not that long at all. I believe that you can still back the Kickstarter or at least order the books if you're interested, so if you are, just look up After the End Kickstarter, and it is run by Adriana Herrera. About the book. The idea in this book was quite interesting. Humans all live somewhat underwater. They can't breathe underwater, but there's whole civilizations built underwater. It all depends kind of on the tides. So when it's high tide, everything's underwater and you live in your underwater civilization society thing. When it's low tide, you can go out and like be outside, actually outside, rather than simulated outside. The thing is, in this universe, the tide schedule isn't uniform, so instead of it being like every 12 hours tides change, you could be in high tide for weeks, meaning people don't really get much sunlight in this universe, or real sunlight. The rich people in this society live up high, which is like closer to the surface, and they tend to get some natural light, whereas then the poorer people live at the very bottom of society and are essentially living in like the depths of the ocean and don't experience real sunlight that often. Because of all of this, kind of like a military run society. Also in here is the Omegaverse, another Ali Hazelwood Omegaverse story. The whole overarching story, idea, plot is that the general in this army steals the bride of one of the like ruling rich families in retaliation for other stuff. The ruling rich family is corrupt. That's kind of the idea. That's kind of the whole story. There's only a little bit of plot, but that's where the plot goes. I liked Hot for Slayer a lot more than I liked First, but it was still like a quick, easy, chill read. And I am glad I backed the Kickstarter, and I am excited to read the rest of the stories. That was all of the books I read from July to October. I believe, was it 16 books? Not bad. If you made it this far, thank you. That was a lot of information and a lot of books, but I hope you enjoyed this. So thank you for watching. If you like this video, here's another one that YouTube recommends, and I will see you next time.